For today's Poetry Corner, one of my very favorite intense poems from Mayakovsky, the great Russian poet and sex symbol, I think. Conversation with a tax collector about poetry. Citizen tax collector, forgive my bothering you. Thank you, don't worry, I'll stand. My business is of a delicate nature, about the place of the poet in the workers' ranks. Along with owners of stores and property, I made subject to taxes and penalties. You demand I pay $500 for the half year and $25 for failing to send in my returns. Now, my work is like any other work. Look here how much I've lost, what expenses I have in my production, and how much I spend on materials. You know, of course, about rhyme. Suppose a line ends with the word day, and then repeating the syllables in the third line, we insert something like Tara boom die. In your idiom, rhyme is a bill of exchange to be honored in the third line. That's the rule. And so you hunt for the small change of suffixes and flexions in the depleted cash box of conjugations and declensions. You start shoving a word into the line, but it's a tight fit. You press and it breaks. Citizen tax collector, honestly, the poet spends a fortune on words. In our idiom, rhyme is a keg of dynamite. The line is a fuse. The line burns to the end and explodes, and the town is blown sky high in a strophe. Where can you find, and at what price, rhymes that take aim and kill on the spot? Suppose only a half dozen unheard of rhymes are left in, say, Venezuela. And so I'm drawn to north and south. I rush around entangled in advances and loans. Citizen, consider my traveling expenses. Poetry, all of it, is a journey to the unknown. Poetry is like mining radium. For every gram you work a year, for the sake of a single word, 1,000 tons of verbal ore. But how incendiary the burning of these words compared with the smoldering of the raw material. These words will move millions of hearts for thousands of years. Of course, there are many kinds of poets. So many of them use legerdemain, and like conjurers, pull lines from their mouth, their own and other people's. Not to speak of the lyrical castrates. They're only too glad to shove in a borrowed line. That is just one more case of robbery and embezzlement among the frauds rampant in the country. These verses and odes bawled out today amidst applause will go down in history as the overhead expenses of what 2 or 3 of us have achieved. As the saying goes, you eat 40 pounds of table salt and smoke 100 cigarettes in order to dredge up one precious word from artesian human depths. So at once, my tax shrinks. Strike out one wheeling zero from the balance due. For 100 cigarettes, a ruble 90. For table salt, a ruble 60. Your form has a mass of questions. Have you traveled on business or not? But suppose I have ridden to death 100 Pegasi in the last 15 years. And here you have, imagine my feelings, something about servants and assets. But what if I am simultaneously a leader and a servant of the people? The working class speaks through my mouth, and we, proletarians, are drivers of the pen. As the years go by, you wear out the machine of the soul, and people say, a back number, he's written out, he's through. There's less and less love, and less daring, and time is a battering ram against my head. Then there's amortization, the deadliest of all, amortization of the heart and soul. And when the sun, like a fattened hog, rises on a future without beggars and cripples, I shall already be a putrefied corpse under a fence, together with a dozen of my colleagues. Draw up my posthumous balance. I hereby declare, and I'm telling no lies, among today's swindlers and dealers, I alone shall be sunk in hopeless debt. Our duty is to blare like brass-throated horns in the fogs of bourgeois vulgarity and seething storms. A poet is always indebted to the universe, paying, alas, interest and fines. I'm indebted to the lights of Broadway, to you, to the skies of Baghdad, to the Red Army, to the cherry trees of Japan, to everything about which I have not yet written. But after all, who needs all this stuff, if it's aimed to rhyme and rage in rhythm? No, a poet's word is your resurrection and your immortality, citizen and official. Centuries hence, take a line of verse from its paper frame and bring back time. And this day, with its tax collectors, its aura of miracles, and its stench of ink will dawn again. Convinced dweller in the present day, go to the NKPS. Take a ticket to immortality, and reckoning the effect of my verse, stagger my earnings over 300 years. But the poet is strong, not only because remembering you, the people of the future will hiccup. No, nowadays too, the poet's rhyme is a caress and a slogan, a bayonet and a knout. Citizen tax collector, I'll cross out all the zeros after the 5 and pay the rest. I demand as my right an inch of ground among the poorest workers and peasants. And if you think that all I have to do is to profit by other people's words, then comrades, here's my pen. Take a crack at it yourselves.